It took me 25 hours, but I managed to beat Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree within 2 days. I am sleep deprived, but it was worth it to experience this Miyazaki masterpiece. You know it's a Miyazaki game when there's feet. I beat every single main boss and explored every single main area within that time, and I gotta say, this DLC is probably one of, if not the best DLCs I have ever played in my entire life. I am being dead serious, like, hold on, give me a second. Is this the face of someone who isn't being serious? I'm already a huge fan of the base game. It was easily Game of the Year when it came out, and in my opinion, it's still the best game ever released. The DLC has the exact same level of quality, and it may be my favorite DLC that From Software has put out. Honestly, if I were to rate this DLC as a whole, I would give it a 10 out of 10. I genuinely cannot think of anything negative to say about it, which may surprise you because you may have noticed that the DLC is currently sat at mixed on Steam, and while a lot of it is relating to PC performance issues which they still haven't fixed since the launch of the base game, most of the negative reviews boil down to genuine problems that people are definitely facing due to bad design with the boss fights. Okay, I'm being kinda mean, but I think a lot of the negative reviews come from the fact that this DLC is hard. God damn it! Like extremely hard. To the point that while fighting the bosses, you will be questioning why you're putting yourself through this. You will, and I mean you will, be getting your absolute shit kicked in constantly. And hey, I get it. For some people, the repetitive death loop of going into a fog wall and getting Chris Browned by Giggle Shitter the Great for 8 hours straight isn't exactly fun, but personally, I love it. I think a lot of people went into this DLC with their max level New Game Plus 5 characters expecting it to be an absolute cakewalk, just to be humbled instantly because Miyazaki planned ahead for people being overprepared for the DLC. He yearns for death and pain. You cannot tell me that this is the face of an innocent man. He's got fucking demons. He made it so there is an entirely unique leveling system that is exclusive to the DLC. And if you don't level up anything at all, you will be one-shot by the most basic enemies. Around the Shadowlands, you find these items called Erdtree fragments and revered spirit ashes. These level up how much damage you deal and how much damage you can take, as well as increasing Torrent's health and your spirit ashes too. Which means you can make the Mimic tier even more broken if you really want to. Well, I say that, but you'll still probably get your ass handed to you anyway with it. I do nothing. I do nothing. These items do what Margit did in the base game, creating a roadblock that pushes you to actually explore the world. Good luck finding them though. You may remember in interviews with Miyazaki where he says the DLC is the size of Limgrave. And yeah, I'd say that's kind of accurate, but he forgot to mention the 5 other Limgraves stacked above and below it. The world in the DLC is far more vertical than the base game, not to mention how many surprises you can easily miss in the least expected areas. There's actually an optional area I want to talk about a bit later in the video, but it's a minor spoiler, so I'll put a warning before I get to that bit, don't worry. In terms of variety with its environment design, Shadow of the Erdtree does not disappoint at all. Almost every single area is visually distinct. I don't think there is a single one that looks samey at all. The same goes for the Legacy dungeons. There's even one that has a side area that reminds me of New Londo Ruins from the original Dark Souls, having you drain water to find something that you wish you never did. I'm not going to tell you what's down there, but after I found it, I don't think I've felt the same since. Honestly, the basic dungeons are great too. Unlike the base game, From Software took the quality over quantity approach with its dungeons and caves. There actually aren't that many within the DLC. I could probably count the amount of them on my hands. You find loads of good items and weapons within these dungeons, and From Software did not skimp out with the amount of new weaponry, with a whopping 100 of them. That includes brand new weapon types, like these beast claws that I looted off of a corpse of a half-naked guy who tried jumping me in a forest. I'm not joking, this happened at like the beginning of the DLC, and if you're not careful, it could happen to you too. The beast claws are cool though. I think my favourite new weapon I got from Shadow of the Erdtree is this neat little sword. I want you all to say nice things about it in the comments, please. It is above average sized. The DLC kinda feels like a greatest hits compilation of the other Soulsborne DLCs. Like for example, there's the fact it takes place in the past, just like Artorias of the Abyss in Dark Souls 1, and it has the insanely over-the-top bosses from Dark Souls 3's DLCs that are just beyond peak with their designs. Now the Bloodborne comparison comes from the horror of Shadow of the Erdtree, and this is where I'm going to be spoiling an area within the DLC, so if you don't want to be spoiled, then skip to this timestamp, or go play it for yourself. I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, so I found this random ass dungeon that I'm not gonna name. It felt like your standard dungeon that you would find within the base game for the most part, apart from the gimmick of having to turn on the lights because the place is absolutely shrouded in darkness. You cannot see shit. A few minutes into it, I noticed how vertical the dungeon felt. There were lifts that plummeted really far down, and there were multiple of these, so by the time I got to the end of it, I felt like I was literally in the core of the planet. The surprises didn't end there though. Once I got to the boss fight, I noticed it was in an entirely new area. See, usually within these dungeons, you fight the boss within a box room with no way to go other than back to the entrance of the dungeon after beating it. Not this one though. After finishing off the boss, I went through a doorway to find out I was in a dark, dingy, swampy forest. My first instinct was to hop on Torrent and speed into the place to see what I could find, but I didn't get far before he decided to buck me off of him. I tried to summon him again, but I got a text box telling me he was too frightened, which was a complete first. I've never seen this before. So because of this, I was kind of creeped out. Deeper within the forest, I found a message that wasn't put down by another player. Instead, it was put down deliberately by one of the developers, and it said, "Don't let it see you." What the fuck? When did Elden Ring become a horror game? This already put me on edge, but what makes it worse is that usually where you'd be able to see an upcoming enemy off in the distance, here you see literally nothing around you. So you just have this constant fear of the unknown, wondering what kind of monstrosity is lurking around this place just out of sight. Then you finally spot it. And by that I mean... I have no idea what these things are, and this is where the Bloodborne comparison comes in, because they have an extremely similar resemblance to these horrific abominations. If you've played Bloodborne, you're probably shitting yourself right now with PTSD looking at this. If these things spot you, they would cause a status buildup called Frenzy, and the ones within Elden Ring do the exact same, but with the Madness status effect. Oh, and they also teleport towards you. There are many of these things scattered around this forest, and sometimes they're in twos, forcing you to skulk around in the foliage, praying to the gods above for them not to spot you. There's also another bit with an enclosed part of the forest where it's covered in darkness, and there's one standing in the middle that you just cannot see, but it can see you. It is horrifying. This area is entirely optional, and if you aren't scouring the entire map of Shadow of the Erdtree, there is a high chance you could miss it. There are many areas just like this in the DLC and the base game of Elden Ring, and it's why I absolutely love From Software and their games. If you're looking for a serious challenge, you'll be happy to know that the final boss within the DLC is so fucking hard. I don't know if this is a skill issue, but I was up till 6 in the morning trying to beat it. And I know I'm not alone right now, because I tested out putting my summon sign down in the most obscure places near the boss arena, and I would get summoned almost instantly by another person struggling for their life. I really can't overemphasize how much I love this DLC, and it seems like so many people agree. I mean, look how many people are playing Elden Ring right now. Now is the best time to get into Elden Ring. A huge part of it is the online aspect, being able to see other players fighting in real time, as well as summoning or being summoned to help others conquer challenges. The bonds of brotherhood you can form with a complete stranger called because you helped them beat the boss Schminkle the Testicular Torsion Warlock is unmatched. Not to mention the amount of messages left by players scattered around absolutely everywhere. Elden Ring has always been a popular game, and even before the DLC came out, there were like a solid 30,000 players at any given time. But right now, with the hype around the DLC, there are players in the hundreds of thousands. The game currently feels so alive, and it's awesome. However, the hype and active player base is inevitably gonna die down at some point, so if you've been thinking of getting either Elden Ring or Shadow of the Erdtree, I would say now is the best time to do it. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video, and I really hope it's made you more interested in playing the DLC. With the main spoiler part of the video, I tried to keep it deliberately vague-ish without going too much into everything within the area that you can find, because I truly think you need to experience it for yourself. Maybe in the future when more people have finished the DLC, I can make a video that's far more in depth going into every aspect that I loved. Let me know if you'd be interested in that, you know, leave a like and a comment. Anyway, what are you still doing watching this video? Go play Shadow of the Erdtree right now. Oh, and check out my Patreon. If you support me, you can get your name at the end of every video, just like this.